Hello, this is we're going to introduce Mr. Dr. John Smith, who is a doctorate in kinesiology and is going to tell you us a little bit about his journey into kinesiology and what has led him to it and what he's passionate about. So I'm going to introduce Mr. John Smith, Dr. John Smith, I'm sorry.
Hi. Well, what got me started in kinesiology is I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I graduated from high school. I just turned 16. I was pretty young, and I was listening to what other people told me. So I'd go to school and try different majors, and I didn't do well in any of them because I wasn't interested in any of them. And I could remember that I was on probation, and then I got extended probation, and then I got disqualified. Disqualified scared me. So I remember sitting by a tree, looking out at the scenery, and I asked myself what I want to do. And I I'm still a very young man, looking like that, and I thought, what do you do? And I was always hanging out in a gym or playing a sport or doing something with my spare time, and I thought I should go into that kind of a field.
Right.
And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know how what they call PE teachers got to be what they were.
Right.
And I did a little homework and found out. And I thought, stop listening to other people tell you what you ought to go do. I went into kinesiology, and that was pretty much where I started. And I got hooked on the idea of being a coach, and I thought, I'm going to be a football coach. That is something I look at now and I go, that would be impossible for me. And but at the time I thought maybe I'd be a high school football coach. And but I started taking classes and I started doing better because I saw where I would go. Along the way, I abandoned the idea of being a coach, and I started just looking at being a professional in the field of physical education, which is now kinesiology in many places. And I started doing very well in school. I got a scholarship to go to University of Illinois for a year to get a master's, and I'm a native Californian. I wondered what in the world I'm going to go into Illinois for. And I was going there, and I just happened to be going there at the time that they had the #1 exercise physiologist in the United States running the graduate program there. And so I was studying under him, and I studied under a top guy in motor learning. And I did well enough there that the people that were recommending me, because it's a strong place, so they could recommend. And the people that had come out of a 4-year college could recommended I go on and get a doctorate. And so I was doing that. And so by the time I turned 30, I had a doctorate in kinesiology. And I'd picked motor learning at the time and was pretty fairly well versed on how to learn motor skills.
Right.
And I spent about maybe 8 years working part-time for 3 or 4 colleges at a time. I was living a pretty good life. I had a place. I was living on the Strand in Manhattan Beach, and I was a AA volleyball player, so I was playing beach volleyball in front of my place, and all the good players were coming to that beach. And then when I didn't play volleyball, I'd be out surfing, and the lifestyle was pretty good. And so I realized that I wasn't doing much. I was just basically having fun, which I can't complain about that.
It was a nice life, right?
Yeah. So I started taking classes. I was looking and going, okay, I'll invest in myself. I don't know what else to do. I'll just try and make myself more valuable. So I started taking classes in business. I started taking classes in psychology. I started just taking a lot of classes. And this is after I already have a doctorate. And so I picked up the equivalent of a master's in an MBA and the equivalent of a master's in industrial psychology. I was going to go psych because I had a lot of classes in motor learning. And the classes in psych, everybody was being a clinical psychologist, and I went industrial psych because it was more quantitative, and the psych majors were dodging it. And so I got background in that area, and I was working for 4 different community colleges, teaching different things and driving all over the place. And I landed at City College, and they started. I was creating things. There were classes that didn't exist that I was creating, and it led to a job. It led to, and it was kind of interesting that I'd been here long enough, and I created a program that was very successful, and I was still part-time, and I'm looking at, I should be doing this. I should be working someplace. And there was a dean that who became a vice president. He was very supportive of me, and I figured I can't stay here any longer. And so I went to him and I said, you know, I called him. I would like you to write a letter of recommendation for me. And he said, how come? And I wasn't complaining, doing anything. I just said, well, I'd like to activate my placement file. And there was a hiring freeze, so, you know, basically I knew he couldn't do anything about getting to help me or stop me. And he turned around and he did something. They basically put a job out and hired me during a hiring freeze. So there's 3 words I give people all the time when students are talking to me about what they're doing and where they're going and all that kind of stuff. And I say, look, if you're ever going for a job, these are the 3 words you got to have echoing through your head. Whether it's when you're writing your resume, when you're thinking about where you're going to go, and if you're lucky enough to get an interview, how you're going to respond and do things. 3 words: successful, relevant, experience. So anybody that's hiring somebody wants to hire somebody that's got experience.
Right.
They want to hire somebody that the experience is relevant to what they're trying to find, and they want to find somebody that was successful. And I kind of focused on that. I kind of picked that notion up at still a relatively young age. I was, 33 when I was with a doctorate and the equivalent of 3 master's degrees and developing a successful program. I think I would have done well whether I stayed here or not, because I had successful, relevant experience. And I think that's a valuable thing for people to stay focused in. Because if you have those, anybody will want you.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of me. In terms of the program, I'm hooked on wellness. I believe that health risks are bad things from every point of view. Businesses now recognizing that health risks are costing them money.
Right.
In terms of the benefit costs, the cost of losing valuable people who can't work as effectively because they're overwhelmed by their medical conditions, and there's a whole set of that stuff. It was a pioneering effort. I remember talking to a group of teachers, and somebody in the English department, when I said the word wellness, stood up and said, "Is wellness a word?" I said, "It better be. I'm giving a talk at a National Wellness Convention next week." So it's come a long way since then, a long way. and I run an employee wellness program for the employees of Long Beach
Okay.
City College. I'm a volunteer chairing a committee, and I created the program about 20 years ago.
And what does this wellness program involve?
Pardon?
What does this wellness program involve for the
Uh,
employees?
well, I'm always challenged with, for a long time I didn't have a budget, so I was always going to hospitals and talking doctors into coming and doing things, and uh, getting people in the nursing department to help me find supplies, and then we would get somebody to do tests. So we do like blood tests and flu shots and, pretty simple stuff. It grew to where when the college hired some consultants to advise the school on benefits, um, one of them managed to dig up some money for us, and so we now have a budget,
Nice.
which isn't a bad budget. And so what I'm looking at is getting people to take better care of themselves, getting them to realize that if they don't take better care of themselves, they're investing in their future, and they're doing all kinds of things to give themselves a better life and a better satisfaction with work and all that. And all that can sink if they're not taking better care of themselves.
Right.
Because-
and that speaks a little bit to the fact that kinesiology is a whole, right? Looking at the whole self.
Looking at the kinesiology as a
Yeah.
whole, well, it's very diversified. People will go in different branches of it. There are people that will really really will want to coach. There are people that will really want to work with different populations.
Right.
You have everything from kids all the way up to the elderly, and everything in between. You can enjoy teaching people sport. You can enjoy helping them stay fit and take better care of themselves. That's my bag. Mine is, to reduce the probability or the possibility that people will get ill.
Right.
And yet you have a wide range. I encourage all the people that are really hung up on it, hang in there, because you may start out one direction and end up another. But it's a very interesting field, and it's a very strong field, and the people that are in it are gifted.
We appreciate all the good advice you've given us. You have a very wide experience, and I think all of the students that will get to hear from your experience will really benefit. So I really appreciate you doing this and agreeing to doing a little interview with me. Thank you, Mr. John.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be able to. I hope this is of true value to people. If I can come out of being disqualified from a community college and turn it around,
Yeah.
don't get discouraged.
Quite inspirational. Thank you.
Okay.